Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into a stack of sources to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, making you instantly well-informed.
Today, we're journeying back to an era often singularly defined by one towering figure, Louis XIV, the Sun King.
That's right. But as our sources reveal, this period, roughly between 1648 and 1715, was far more than just one monarch's reign. It was a profound crucible of change across Europe.
It really is a fascinating paradox. On the surface, you see the epitome of absolute monarchy and relentless, brutal wars.
Yeah, the classic image.
But beneath that, this era was simultaneously igniting the flames of reason, rigorous scientific inquiry, and entirely new forms of human expression.
So our mission today is to uncover these surprising facts and deep contradictions that truly shape the modern world.
Exactly. We want you, our listener, to emerge from this deep dive with a really solid understanding of this transformative age, the triumphs, the terror, and the truly unexpected moments.
Okay, let's unpack this intricate tapestry, starting, I suppose, with the Sun King himself and his France.
Right. When you look at Louis XIV, the sources truly hammer home the extent of his absolute power. He was convinced, deeply and personally, that he was divinely ordained to govern France, a belief consistently reinforced by influential figures like Bishop Bossuet, who preached about the king's, sacred authority.
And what's particularly striking is how his early life shaped this. The rebellions known as the Fronde.
Ah, yes, the Fronde, crucial.
They were a series of civil wars that, traumatized the young king. He and his family literally fled Paris.
And that left him deeply distrustful of the capital. This personal fear directly fueled his ambition to build Versailles, a magnificent new seat of power far removed from the city's turmoil.
And Versailles itself, it was a monument to this ambition, on a scale almost impossible to grasp today.
Just huge. Designed to house some 10,000 people, over 700 rooms, costing an astronomical 200,000 francs.
Wow. But here's a truly surprising detail you mentioned earlier, the facilities.
Yeah, exactly. For all its opulence, the original designs completely lacked adequate restroom facilities. It's kind of stunning.
That is a stark revelation, isn't it? For all of Louis XIV's absolute power and grand vision, just basic sanitation was an afterthought.
It led to surprisingly unhygienic realities throughout the palace. And this absolutism wasn't just his personal belief, it was enabled by incredibly capable individuals.
Like Jean-Baptiste Colbert.
Precisely. Colbert rose rapidly to manage France's finances and multiple state departments. It really shows how individual talent could be harnessed to solidify such a centralized system.
But the very system Colbert so efficiently enabled was put to immense and ultimately devastating use through Louis's, his vainglorious wars.
The sources paint a grim picture. The French peasantry faced destitution and starvation. Taxation was so heavy people literally starved.
Starved to fund the wars.
Yes. And Louis even ordered all royal and noble silverware to be melted down for funds. Fenelon, a future archbishop, wrote this anonymous, blistering letter.
The one you mentioned.
Yeah, telling the king directly that his people were dying of hunger, that the towns and the countryside depopulated. Just brutal honesty.
It's hard to imagine that level of suffering. And what's fascinating is how Louis was perceived outside France.
Oh, not well. In many places, German pamphleteers didn't hold back. They called French soldiers Huns dead to any human feeling.
And Louis himself.
A monster, a blasphemer, a barbarian worse than any Turk. A very different image from his Sun King persona back home.
Okay, so while that's happening in France, let's shift across the channel. England's century was equally tumultuous, though its path to power, it diverged sharply.
Very much so. You have the restoration of Charles II in 1660. He returned to a nation seemingly eager to welcome him back after years of civil war and Cromwell's republic.
But it wasn't smooth sailing, right? He still had to navigate deep religious and political tensions simmering beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And Charles II himself had a rather, shall we say, cynical take on religion.
That quote is amazing. Presbyterianism is no religion for a gentleman, and Anglicanism is no religion for a Christian. What does that tell us?
Well, it's a window into the deep skepticism and shifting loyalties of the age. It reveals a ruler who saw religion perhaps more as a political tool than a spiritual truth.
And politically, things were messy.
You could say that. Corruption was rampant. It was estimated that 2/3 of the commons were in the pay of Charles II.
Get out.
And the other third in the pay of Louis XIV. Imagine the divided loyalties.
That's astonishing. Talk about conflicted interests. This instability ultimately culminated in the Glorious Revolution of 1688.
Right. And unlike the French Fronde, this wasn't a bloody civil war. Instead, Parliament invited William and Mary to take the throne.
Which marks a pivotal moment, fundamentally shifting England towards parliamentary supremacy, limiting the monarchy's power. A very different outcome.
As England began its unique journey, new powers were rapidly emerging on the continent, too. Frederick William of Prussia, for example.
The Great Elector.
That's him. He forged his state on 3 core principles: a clear plan and strong will, the money to execute it, and, crucially, a formidable army.
A standing army, which was quite new then.
Yes. By 1656, he had assembled the first truly standing army in Europe, 18,000 highly trained men. Quite a feat.
And what's truly impressive about him, reading the sources, is his pragmatism, especially regarding religion.
He recognized that religious intolerance, which plagued so much of Europe, was an obstacle to economic and political development. A very modern thought, really.
So unlike many contemporaries, he allowed religious freedom.
He did, to Lutherans, Calvinists, Catholics, Unitarians, and Jews within his domains. It was a radical idea, directly linking economic growth to religious toleration.
Then there's Peter the Great of Russia. What a figure.
Truly larger than life. Personified the raw, unrefined power of this era. Physically, he was immense, 6 feet, 8.5 inches tall.
Wow. And his personality. A bit eccentric.
Yes. Violent quirks, definitely. Forcing his wife to kiss a phallus, extracting sound teeth from friends as some bizarre discipline.
Good grief.
But his overarching goal was clear: forcibly drag Russia into the modern European world.
And he was very hands-on about it. That story about Luther's house.
Oh yes, the ink spot. When asked to comment, he just wrote, "The ink is quite fresh, so that the story is evidently not true." Classic Peter. Direct, skeptical.
And lifting the young Louis XIV off the ground, the French court must have been horrified.
Caused quite a stir, apparently. He certainly left an impression. It highlights his directness, his unbridled power.
So these new powers, Prussia and Russia, they're rising in a continent constantly at war.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, as the Durants keenly observed, the absolutist polity is a child of war and democracy is a luxury of peace. A truth brutally evident then.
And the end of the threat from the Ottoman Empire didn't bring peace, did it?
Ironically, no. The repulse of the Turks from Europe led to more internecine war in the West, as European powers now turned their military might fully on each other.
And the nature of war itself was changing.
A significant shift. It became a new kind of war, in which no hired mercenaries fought the battles, but whole nations were conscripted for competitive massacre. Much larger scale, much more devastating.
Like the War of Spanish Succession.
A prime example. From 1701 to 1713, it devastated France so profoundly that Louis XIV himself admitted his victories were bleeding the life from his country. The price of glory was starvation.
So amidst all this war and shifting power, Europe was also wrestling with its soul, wasn't it? That brings us to the battle for the soul: religion, toleration, skepticism.
A crucial dimension. In England, for instance, the Anglican Church under Charles II increasingly identified its interests entirely with those of the possessing classes.
So less about universal salvation, more about keeping the rich comfortable.
Essentially, yes. Its focus dramatically shifted to maintaining social order and the status quo for the wealthy. It became, effectively, an arm of the state and the elite.
And ironically, the sources suggest the morals of commoners were perhaps better.
Probably yes, largely due to economic routine and the continuing influence of Puritan faiths among the working classes.
What for the upper classes?
Well, religion had literally lost caste. It belonged to tradesmen and peasants. Polite Anglicanism served more as a tool for gentlemen to keep villagers in fear of hell, rather than a deep personal faith.
A real class divide in faith. And this period also saw just relentless intolerance and persecution.
Grimly so. Louis XIV's systematic persecution of the Huguenots French Protestants is a stark example.
That culminated in the revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685.
Exactly. It had previously granted them rights. Now their worship was outlawed, guild advancement made impossible.
Even children could be taken from their parents.
Children as young as 12 could convert and leave their Protestant parents. New Protestant colleges were forbidden. Emigration was punished with arrest, confiscation of goods.
And anyone helping them.
Condemned to the galleys for life. It was brutal.
And the impact on France itself.
Profound social and economic dislocation. These skilled Huguenot workers and merchants took their talents, their savings elsewhere. It really foreshadowed later economic troubles for France.
And it wasn't just Protestants targeted.
No. Our sources note that Jews were relentlessly persecuted in this period. In some areas, the atrocities outdid those of the Crusades or the Black Death.
The Portuguese Inquisition features prominently.
Yes, playing a particularly brutal role, leading many Marranos Jews forced to convert who secretly practiced their faith to flee for their lives.
What's chilling, though, is that the different faiths seem to agree on one thing.
Intolerance. The competing faiths agreed on intolerance. It's a stark reminder. Even a thinker like Thomas Hobbes, despite his other radical ideas.
He supported state control over religion.
He did. He believed an independent church would mean two sovereigns, leading inevitably to chaos and civil war.
But amidst this darkness, there were these vital early glimmers of toleration and skepticism. Seeds of the Enlightenment.
Absolutely. Figures like William Penn making significant efforts for religious toleration in England.
And founding Pennsylvania as a democratic colony with religious freedom, quite radical.
Truly radical for its time. And then there's John Locke, whose arguments for religious toleration were absolutely pivotal.
What was his main point?
He emphasized that the law should only concern itself with social order and protecting civil rights, not men's souls or their private beliefs. That's the state's job.
And he had that sharp observation about religions demanding tolerance.
When weak, but refusing it when strong. He attributed persecution not to genuine faith, but fundamentally to a lust for power, a powerful argument for separating church and state.
Still feels relevant today. And alongside this, we see the rise of free thinkers, deists.
Yes, a very visible shift. The philosopher Pierre Bayle reported a prodigious indifference to religion almost everywhere he looked.
And that quote from the Princess Palatine in 1699.
Astonishing, isn't it? One now rarely finds a young man who does not wish to be an atheist. It reveals a society really starting to question long-held dogmas.
Moving towards reason, individual thought taking precedence over strict religious authority.
Exactly. This intellectual ferment leads us directly into the dawn of reason. Science and philosophy explode. It's like the human mind itself was shedding old shackles.
Embarking on a bold new path of inquiry. Christian Huygens, the scientist, summed it up perfectly.
The world is my country, and to promote science is my religion. A powerful statement for the time. The scientific revolution was truly taking off.
And the Royal Society in England was a key hub for this. Founded 1660?
A definite focal point, though it was famously satirized, by Swift in Gulliver's Travels.
Extracting sunshine from cucumbers, building houses from the roof down.
Right, and Samuel Butler writing about the elephant in the moon that turned out to be a mouse in the telescope.
So it had its critics.
It did, but it was undeniably a vibrant hub of innovation, pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
And from this environment emerged Isaac Newton. His contributions were just immense.
Revolutionary.
Totally changed the game. Differential calculus fluxions, he called it. The universal law of gravitation.
How did he discover that?
His answer was simple. By thinking of them without ceasing. Just relentless focus.
And he even anticipated Einstein.
Incredibly, yes. Wondering if mass could bend light, if matter could change into light and energy. Way ahead of his time. His Principia Mathematica was a watershed moment.
And his friend, Edmund Halley.
Building on Newton's work, Halley made his famous prediction about the comet's return in 1758, which wasn't just a calculation, it was a blow against superstition.
Absolutely. It showed comets weren't random acts of God predicting disaster, but predictable parts of celestial mechanics. A huge shift in worldview.
And this scientific spirit wasn't just theoretical, it led to practical inventions.
Directly spurred technological advances, the early stirrings of the Industrial Revolution. You have steam engines developed by Thomas Savery in 1699.
And Thomas Newcomen a bit later.
1712, yes. These early engines, though rudimentary, really set the stage for a global transformation.
So science is exploding. What about philosophy? Was there a similar revolution?
Just as profound. A fundamental rethinking of man, society, God. Take Thomas Hobbes.
Not exactly an optimist about humanity.
Far from it. He saw human nature driven by a perpetual and restless desire of power after power that ceaseth only in death. He even thought gratitude sometimes includes secret hatred. Bleak stuff.
So for him, the state of nature was chaos.
Competition and mutual aggression, essentially. Which is why he argued for absolute government, the Leviathan, as necessary for order.
A stark contrast to someone like Blaise Pascal.
Completely. Pascal wrestled intensely with faith and reason. He had that startling argument. Science, therefore, is a silly presumption. It is based on reason, which is based on the senses, which deceive us in 100 ways.
Wow, quite a critique of science itself.
Yet he also passionately described the human condition, calling man a chimera, a contradiction, a prodigy, judge of all things, an imbecile norm of the earth, depository of truth and sewer of error and doubt, the glory and refuse of the universe.
That's incredibly powerful. It really captures that sense of paradox, doesn't it?
His deep internal conflict, our capacity for both immense intellect and profound fallibility. And his piety was reinforced by personal experience, like the miracle healing of his niece at Port Royal.
Then there's John Locke again. He really paved the way for the Enlightenment.
Absolutely pivotal. His treatises on government and essay concerning human understanding, game changers.
His idea of the social contract was different from Hobbes's.
Very. People surrender rights not to an absolute monarch, but to the community as a whole. And crucially, the community retains the right to resist a king who violates the laws.
Which sounds like a direct justification for England's glorious revolution.
It absolutely was a philosophical underpinning for it.
And perhaps the boldest heretic of his age was Baruch Spinoza.
Spinoza pushed boundaries like few others. His core belief: God is the indwelling, not the transient cause of all things. God is nature, not separate from it.
An immanent God.
Exactly. He emphasized the intellectual love of God, understanding and accepting the cosmic order, but most radically, for that time.
What was his view on the state?
He believed that the end of the state is really liberty. Its true purpose is to set free each man from fear. A truly revolutionary idea in an age of absolutism.
Profound. We should also mention Gottfried Leibniz.
Right, also independently invented calculus. And his fascinating idea of a universe composed of monads, each a unique mirror of God.
And his famous optimism, the best of all possible worlds.
Yes, a striking philosophical counterpoint to the harsh realities and brutal wars surrounding him.
And finally, Daniel Defoe, known for Robinson Crusoe, had some surprisingly progressive views.
Especially on female education, he argued for academies where women would learn languages, history, all the graces and courtesies of speech.
Not just household management.
Exactly, not just being stewards of our houses, cooks, and slaves. He envisioned nurturing women's minds, quite forward-thinking.
So the world was being redefined by science and philosophy. And human expression itself was changing too. That brings us to art, literature, and everyday life.
An age of incredible creativity, often fueled by royal patronage. Louis XIV, again, was central here.
The most lavish patron of literature in all history.
Arguably, yes. Pensioning artists, scholars, scientists, French and foreign, like Huygens. This centralized patronage profoundly shaped the arts, directing its flourishing.
You see it in projects like the Louvre. Colbert held that design competition.
Right, famously inviting the great Italian artist Bernini. But Bernini's plans were rejected.
Why, $2,000?
Partly that required demolishing much of the existing structure, but also Colbert apparently found them deficient in plumbing and other facilities for living. That practical issue again.
Echoes of Versailles, so they went with a different design.
Yes, the famous colonnade designed by Charles Perrault.
More practical. And in French literature, this was just a golden age. Molière.
A genius at exposing human folly, especially among the nobility and bourgeoisie. His own difficult marriage might have even fueled plays like The Miser.
Pouring salt into his wounds.
As the sources suggest, yes. Using satire to process personal pain, perhaps. And his critique of social climbing in Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme is timeless. Still funny today.
Then there's Racine. Very different focus.
Intense emotional drama, the psychology of passion, often featuring women as main characters facing impossible moral choices.
His style is quite formal, though. Alexandrine couplets.
Yes, a succession of orations, challenging for modern ears maybe, but brilliantly capturing inner turmoil and grand passions, powerful tragedies.
And La Fontaine, the black sheep.
A lover of nature, used animals in his famous fables to speak philosophical truths, subtly commenting on human society through allegory. A unique voice.
And La Rochefoucauld, with his maxims, cynical stuff.
Very cynical, yes. Exposing human selfishness and vanity, often born from his own disillusionment with court life.
But there was some nuance later.
Yes. The sources note old age softened him, showing that even he conceded altruism is the expansion of the self to family and friends. A touch of warmth eventually.
Okay. Across the channel again, English Restoration culture. different vibe.
Oh yes. Restoration drama was lively, witty, but often quite bawdy, focused heavily on bedroom escapades and adultery as the main purpose.
And this is when women started acting on stage.
Yes, actresses dramatically replaced boys in female parts, and many prominent actresses, like Nell Gwyn, were famously also mistresses of powerful figures, added to the era's scandalous reputation.
John Dryden was a key figure then.
Very prominent. And he reflected the shifts of the time. He evolved from writing those erotic comedies to later defending the Anglican Church as a pillar of England's stability, adapting to the times.
But for a truly intimate glimpse into daily life, Samuel Pepys's diary.
Unbeatable, incredible personal insights, naval affairs, the Great Fire, yes, but also his own candid life, his strange slavery that I stand in to beauty.
He really wrote everything down, looking at ladies' petticoats. His affairs.
Graphically, glutting himself with looking at Lady Castlemaine, seducing his wife's maid. It's all there. Yet, despite these amours, he was an incredibly disciplined, effective naval administrator, a fascinating contradiction.
Then there's Jonathan Swift, much darker.
Oh, yes. His strange and sometimes revolting productions, like Gulliver's Travels, came from a mind like a conjured spirit. Deep misanthropy.
That question he asked his friend.
Do not the corruptions and villainies of men eat your flesh and exhaust your spirit? Cuts right to the heart of his dark genius, his critique of humanity.
What a question indeed. And finally, John Evelyn's diary. A different perspective.
More quality, perhaps, less personal gossip, more focus on important events, and notably his successful advocacy for reforestation in England.
Which had a real impact on the landscape.
A significant, lasting impact. A different kind of legacy.
So what does this all mean for us today? As we wrap up this deep dive, it's abundantly clear that this period, 1648 to 1715, despite the wars, the poverty, the intolerance, it was a fundamental paradigm shift.
It truly was, despite that constant race between art and war, between ignorance and enlightenment. A new light of reason, science, toleration, and progress had been irrevocably lit.
It didn't just set the stage, it laid the foundational groundwork for the Enlightenment and the revolutions that followed, reshaping the world.
The sources affirm it. The 17th century was the most productive in the history of modern thought. It shaped how we understand power, society, knowledge, faith. Even today, it's a legacy we're still grappling with.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a final provocative thought for you, our listener.
How do the inherent tensions and contradictions of this era think about it? The simultaneous pursuit of absolute power alongside the yearning for individual liberty.
Fervent religious belief battling emerging skepticism.
Devastating wars coexisting with unprecedented scientific collaboration. How do those tensions continue to echo and shape our world, even today?
Something to mull over. Think about those paradoxes and how they still play out in modern society.